Hello, guys, and just ignore the chat because I really want to record this video. Like, my parents just left, and I was like, this is the perfect time to record a video. But I was like, well, what shirt can I wear so that you guys know that I actually have some cool shirts? And I thought, John Lennon would fit great for this video. But I don't know, I feel like the shirt is a little too tight. So I kind of, I don't know, I feel like I look like a fucking twink in this shirt, but I always look like a twink anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, what is the video about? What is the title? The title's probably something like "Be mad, but you're not actually alternative" or something. Just to catch like some people's eyes, I guess, because nobody's clicking on my videos. Nobody cares what I have to say. So sad. I'm so sad. Anyway, enough of this tomfoolery. I actually wrote a little script. It's not even a script really. It's just like it's just this where I just have some points that I want to say. By the way, look at how beautiful I draw this shit. Anyway, let's start. So let's get this out of the way. If you show up at any fast fashion things, you're not alternative. I don't care if you say that, oh, I have no money, oh, this and that and this and that. I don't care. You're not alternative if you show up at Shein, if you show up at Team, if you show up at any of these kind of things. And you can fucking jump me if you want to, but I stand by my words here, alright? Because in order to be alternative, like just dressing up, it's not about dressing up. It's about being alternative. It's about you know actually following whatever the fuck it's like it's a whole philosophy. It's the same way when people say that they're like fucking that they can it's the same as when people like claim to be a part of some kind of philosophical idea, like for example absurdism, but they never follow anything absurdism actually says. Or this, my computer's about to fucking die. Hold on. Oh my gosh. Hold on, I just need to plug my computer into the charging thing because otherwise you guys will never see me again. Holy fuck, my computer's about to die. My computer's about to fucking die, man. Yeah, but as I'm saying, like, as I said, like, same with like philosophy, like, I see people claim that they're like absurdists, but they never actually read or like understood what Camus or any absurd, like Camus or, the fuck is his name even? Fuck, I forgot. This guy, he had a wife who was like very feminist, and she wrote her own like feminist books that were also like very. I forgot their fucking. I read the books, right? But I just can't remember the fucking name because it's kind of French name. Anyway, but you know how people just claim to be things and then never follow. They just like the idea of being like alternative or absurdist or like whatever the else there is. But if you're not ready to follow the political ideologies, if you're not ready to follow with the alternative lifestyle, then you're not alternative. Because just because you have like dark hair and just because you have piercings, that does not make you alternative. It's just you cosplaying as an alternative person, which is just very different. It's the reason people did not like emos in the 2000s. Now people like emos because it seems it's like this kind of retro thing. But back in the day, people did not like emos, and it was mainly because they saw emos the same way we see those kind of 2020 alternative people. It's like this commercialized alternative style. Um, but now it's like it feels like nowadays people don't even like they don't give a shit. They just kind of look at this kind of old alternative styles and think that everything was real alternative just because it was like old, but that's not the case. Real alternative does not come from the styles, it comes from the ideas, which are always relevant no matter the time period, no matter what. So yeah, now, like, and also I don't think that you have to look like super alternative to actually be alternative. Like, you don't have to have a bunch of piercings, don't need like neon green hair or anything like that. It looks great, it looks cool, and it rebels against the norm, which I agree with. That is why I have piercings, this is why I try to dress more like alternatively, but I don't really look that alternative because I just don't really care enough. But I feel like the main idea with alternative is the ideas and how to dress up, because I feel like nowadays it's a lot about just the whole thing is just about dressing up. And I think part of the reason is also, now this is gonna sound like I'm just taking shit from the wind, but I think the main reason alternative style is primarily about clothes is because of the porn industry, which just capitalized on the whole like sexiness and hotness of the alternative style. Also TV shows that just again capitalized of the whole idea of like a goth girl who is like hot and all. And I feel that made a lot of non-goths want to be goth, but just because of the idea of being hot. And same with like metal, metal is super commercialized. It's super like, it's all about just looking cool, it's all about just being cool, and it's lost everything like. But like at the same time, metal was never like even remotely political. Like metal was always about just being commercial, or like kinda. It's hard to tell because at first you look at metal and you're like this thing is not commercial at all. I mean, it goes against like the norm. But then it became commercial because it became kind of the mainstream. But that happens to like that's just bound to happen with anything cool, to be honest. So I don't know. But nowadays it just feels like people just choose their subculture just based off looking good, just based off looking hot and all. And they don't really give a shit about the history, they don't care about the politics, they don't care about anything. And if you dare to bring up the fact that, for example, emo is not at all this kind of like, because look, I'm not hating on emos here, I fucking love emo, like where's my chemical, right? I like emo. I used to listen to scream emo all the time, like fuck was it called, like flinch, or I think it was called flinch or something like that. But like I want people to understand that, for example, subcultures like emo or metalhead, are not, they're not like, how do I say it, like real political kind of subculture, because there's a reason that like punks did not fuck with like emos back in the 20,000 2000s. There's a reason why a lot of people especially punks criticize like metal or grunge because it was commercial, because it was like about just again looks and all. And I think a lot of people now they just forget it because again they just look back and they think, oh, but this subculture happened in like 90s, and 90s is like older, so that means that whatever musical happened was good. But they forget the fact that again it's all commercial, it's always about selling, and which goes completely against any like ideal. Fuck, I'm trying to talk without a script and it just goes crazy. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying that there are strict rules about being alternative, but I'm saying that um, it's all just nowadays like very watered down to just looks, and that is very sad. There is no political nothing, and even if there is, like for example, I see people with like communist pins, and I'm like, I study like listen, um, I study history, I study politics in school, I study social studies, all that. And when I see this, I'm like I don't know, it just, if we look at any communist country, it's very not a very safe space for punks at all. And I'm like, when I see punks wear these pins, and I'm like, I don't know, like I'm guessing that they just like the ground ideas, which I also agree with, but they don't really look into further than that. They don't look into the history, and I think this is very important. I think nowadays the alternative community is based on looks, the aesthetic of being like this kind of junkie. That is why a lot of alternative people nowadays look at hippies from like 60s, 70s and think that this was like good, this was cool, but it wasn't really, because if we look at the way hippies were, they were really, really like, how do I say it? They went against their own ideologies. That's just, I'm not gonna go into like details because again I am not like some kind of expert on all the subcultures ever. I just know enough to understand things, because again I read a lot of history, and besides right now I'm writing a novel about people who are a part of like subcultures in the 80s, and that's why I had to like read a lot, and that's when I noticed that like this kind of weird shift, how it's very weird with the alternative community. There's so much to it, and there's so much to say that I swear I never in my life will I be able to like explain everything. um Also, one thing that I think a lot of people look over is actually engaging with real life community, because I feel like a lot of people just sit online and they kind of like just sit online and they listen to the old bands. They only like the old music. They only like the old styles, and they don't care about they like to go into real life and see real people. And I really think this is a problem, because I feel like in order to be alternative, you have to engage with alternative people, and you have to actually go to the shows. You actually have to, try something alternative, try to be alternative, and not to just sit there on your ass and just like browse through like Spotify's top most famous alternative bands. I do agree these bands are like famous for a reason, because they're fucking great. I mean, look at my The Smiths, right? They're famous, and I can't point. And I love them so much. Morrissey, Soundgarden, as you can see there. All that. But I think you need to, like, I go to live shows a lot. I know the local bands. I don't listen to Swedish music especially, but I know the local bands and I support the local bands because I want alternative music to continue. But nowadays it feels like people hear the new music, the new alternative things, and they immediately just bash it, just hate it just because it's new. But like, you have to understand, authentic alternative music does not come from the being old, from the 90s or 80s. It comes from the ideas, it comes from the politics, it not even the sound, because the sound don't really matter in terms of music. It matters is what they're saying and how they say it. So, for example, just because Motley Crue was like famous in when was the 80s doesn't make them some kind of like the what the fuck I'm gonna call them, glam rock maybe. Because again, they were very like, fuck, this is a bad idea, because glam rock was always commercial. But okay, let's take another one. Just because Dead Kennedys is like one of the most famous punk bands does not make them the standard for punks. And if you go in real life, you're gonna hear a lot of other punk bands who do not sound anything like Dead Kennedys, but they're not any less of a punk, and they deserve to be heard. And the yeah, so I think this is what I'm talking about. Just talking about the way people glamorize the past and they don't really look into the future. They don't really care about progressing the styles, progressing the music, progressing anything. They just care about copying whatever was before them, and they don't really, actually care about the alternative culture. They only care about looking good and sounding nice. And I think this is very unfortunate, because I really want to hear the alternative culture like evolve more, and I feel like a lot of people nowadays are not harsh enough about the being like, I see a lot of alternative people trying to defend fast fashion, and it's like you just go against your own ideology, you go against everything you say. And I think as an alternative person you have to be harsh, you have to yell about your opinions, you have to be harsh about it. Because if you sit there, if you just sit there, right, like a little fucking ball like this, and go like, guys, please don't buy from fast fashion. I mean you can buy it if you want to, but please don't. Like, this is not gonna work. You have to yell about your opinions. You have to stand there and be like, yeah, Sheen sucks, yeah, Timo sucks, all this sucks, and you have to tell it to people. You can't just sit there and expect the world to change by just sitting there and just doing nothing. And you have to go to live shows to support the local artists, because if you sit there again and you just cling onto the like, I'm gonna try to find some kind of right, let's just take Weezer. If you sit there and you cling on this one genre, right, which died 1,000 years ago, or like, not died, but and you sit there and you're clinging on to it, and you just go like, yeah, the older days, they were so good, they were so nice, I wish I could go back, I wish I could go back. Instead of like spreading out your fucking wings and go out and like see that there's like good bands that make music that's similar to this, that still, are a band and make music, new music, and go support them, then again, it's not gonna change anything. You're just gonna sit and you're gonna cling onto the past without like ever going further. Fuck, I have so many CDs just laying around. I mean, look at this. I should maybe show off all my CDs. Anyway, that's it. That was just a big ass rant about alternative subculture music, and this video is like long as fuck. I doubt anyone gonna watch this, but yeah.